Well, hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. So excited to gather for another online service for One Church, and it's just going to be a great time to worship together, dig more into our You're Not Far series as we're diving through the Gospel of Mark, and I'm just excited to be together online as a church today. Just a couple of things for you as we get moving in our service. One, if you're a guest with us, you've been checking us out the past few weeks, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad you're checking us out. Hopefully you enjoy your One Church experience, and I want to invite you to fill out our virtual Connect card online. This is a chance for us to get connected with you, to get you some more information about who we are as a church, and you can find the link to that Connect card in the comment section of Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching right now for the service. So take a moment now or after the service, click on that link and fill out that Connect card, and we'd love to connect with you this week to give you some more information about who we are, about our mission as a church, to work as one, to help people follow Jesus. Also, something we do each week and we invite people to participate in is we worship God by giving back some of the financial resources God blesses us with. Now, if you're a guest with us today, please feel no obligation to do so. This is a chance for those who call One Church their home church, their family, to contribute to the mission we have and we're serving in together as a church. Now, you can give at onechurchpgh.com/giving, and that's a way you can get set up to give safely and securely online to contribute to our mission. Also, we announced last week, and just a quick reminder to mark your calendars, that July 19th, that Sunday, that'll be the first Sunday. We'll be back to having in-person live services at our church building at 202 Liberty Street in Bridgeville. We're so excited to get back together in person. We'll still have our children's ministry that will be modified a little bit, but it'll still be a place for kids to connect together, to learn more about who Jesus is and how much God loves them. We're still going to have our worship and gathering for communion and teaching, and I'm so excited to do so. But if you are unable to come to the building or you're a little uncomfortable still, that's completely okay. We're still going to have our online services as well, but just mark your calendars. If you're ready to get back to the building like I am, July 19th, that's going to be the first time we gather back together in person for our live services. Finally, we are continuing our You're Not Far series as we're discussing and exploring through the book of Mark in the Bible, which is Mark's written account about Peter's experience. Peter's one of Jesus' apostles, about his experience following Jesus, learning from Jesus, and we are continuing to dig into this truth that because of Jesus, we are not far from God. And then I have a very special friend who's a friend of One Church. He's spoken many times at One Church since we've launched. His name is Cody Sable. He'll be giving the message today. And I'm so thankful for him and his friendship and the work he does around Pittsburgh with his art. But I'm thankful, most importantly, for his love of Jesus and his passion to share this message with you today, because I'm excited as he digs in to chapter 3 of the book of Mark. He's digging into something that really important for all of us, that oftentimes one of the things that keeps us far away from God is we don't know exactly who Jesus is and what Jesus is all about. So he'll be teaching on that today. Give him your attention. It's a great message, and I'm so excited for us to be blessed by that today. But now let's gather, or not gather, let's, wherever you're at, your living room, kitchen, wherever you're watching, let's worship together through music as Aaron leads us at this time.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Yeah, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me, and I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. And I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Well, how are we doing, One Church? I don't know if you guys remember me. I'm Cody. I'm usually the guy with paint all over my hands and a lot of paint on the floor. But I am here today in Scott's living room, which is not paint friendly. So I'm just here to give you guys this message this week. Brandon so graciously allowed me the opportunity to come here and speak to you guys again, and I couldn't be more excited to do so. It is always nice to be with you guys. And from my understanding, this is a passage that I want to talk about from the bottom of my heart. It really applies to me, so I hope that you guys get it as well. But first, I kind of want to get into where we've been, because you haven't seen me in a while, and I haven't talked to you in a while. And so we're still in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic. And I know that I've been impacted directly from it, as well as just about everybody that you know. So as far as the way I perceive things, I guess I'll take us all the way back to March 11th, 2020, which is a day that I probably won't soon forget. It's the day that I was sitting in my basement. My wife was putting our almost 3-month-old baby into the crib because he had not been sleeping for the past 5 days, so he was long overdue, and we were long overdue for some rest. She finally puts him into the crib. She comes downstairs to the basement. We're hanging out. Me, my wife, my 2 dogs, Allegheny and Pierogi. We're sitting there watching ESPN, and we're kind of passively watching. We're going in and out of like falling asleep. And in the back of our minds, down at the bottom of the ticker, on social media, everywhere, we just keep hearing about coronavirus, what is it going to do? And when things aren't directly towards you, you know how you kind of just like, whatever. And it wasn't until we're watching the pregame for the Utah Jazz versus somebody, again, passively watching, and I guess a referee runs onto the court and they just have a small conversation and they cancel the game. And the alert at the bottom of the screen just says NBA cancels game. And then we're like, that's really strange. And then, we go on our phones, we check Twitter, we check Instagram, all that stuff that us millennials do. And then on the TV screen, it cuts to these, what are now, I think, kind of funny looking videos of Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, getting the alert that the entire NBA season had just been canceled. And he's got wide eyes, his mouth is hung way open, and he's like showing his phone to people. He gets up out of his seat and walks to the Dallas Mavericks bench, and he's talking with the executives and the coach over there, and it's this crazy scene. Nothing like this has ever happened before, and it is caused because of a couple of players having the coronavirus. So when I saw the alert that said the NBA cancels their season, in the back of my mind, in the very front of my mind, all I could think about was, this isn't going to be good. And we woke up the next morning, and the NHL had canceled their season as well. And also 6 of the events that I had planned for the next couple weeks. Now, if you don't know what I do, that's fine. My job and livelihood is as an artist. And I travel around and I do events all around Pittsburgh, all around Pennsylvania, and sometimes if I'm feeling good about myself, I'll say all around America. But let's just say the East Coast. I travel, I paint at events, and that's basically all that I do, other than spend time with you for an hour once a year. And by the end of the day, we had 17 total events cancel. And we're kind of watching in fear as more things around the world are canceling, shutting down. And I think by 48 hours out, every event for the next 6 months had been canceled. Now, there's fear for us. There's fear in a few different ways, and as I'm sure you guys can recall in your lives, that we don't know anything about this disease. We don't exactly know who it's targeting, who it's attacking. We're hearing that it's 10 times worse than the flu. There's all this uncertainty surrounding coronavirus, but also we're seeing lockdowns being put in effect. We're seeing a lot of businesses that won't be able to afford to stay open, or they won't be able to afford to be anywhere but outside of bankruptcy. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding this time. And for me and my family, we just bought this house. We just had a baby. And to watch 75% of our family's income just disappear, we really didn't know what to do. We're applying for loans and unemployment and everything that we could do, pandemic assistance, and we're more in tune with the news than we've ever been, just trying to figure out what is going on and what we're going to be able to do. And I don't know if you can relate to any of this, but my guess is you probably can. The world changed more in these past 6 months than I've ever seen before in my 25 years. We weren't mad at the president. We weren't mad at our lawmakers. We weren't mad at the scientists. We weren't even mad at God. We were just afraid, and we kept praying, God, fix this, fix this, fix this. And I think the last couple Sundays, we've been in this series about fix this. And I think what we're noticing is a lot of people just don't get it. That the fix this attitude a lot of times misses the mark. We talked last week about prayer life and why Jesus was really there, and we talked about some extremely interesting passages in the Bible, and as we move forward past those passages into pretty similar stuff, what we see here is this tension between what we want and why Jesus is there. And I want to go to Mark chapter 3. And I just want to read this passage, and we're going to get a lot of stuff out of it. But I also want to make sure that we're not missing the mark. And the mark is the tension between the crowd and Jesus. Jesus withdrew from his disciples to the lake, and a large crowd from Galilee followed. When they heard about all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, and the regions across the Jordan, all around Tyre and Sidon. Because of the crowd, he told his disciples to have a small boat ready for him to keep the people from crowding him, for he had healed many, so that those with diseases were pushing forward to touch him. Whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." And he gave them strict orders not to tell anybody about him. So the expectation of the crowd was that all I hear is that this Jesus guy, he can heal people. People are walking up to Jesus and they could tug on his robe and broken bone healed, just like that. A few passages in the Bible actually say that Jesus didn't even have to notice you. You could just grab onto his garments and healed, just like that. That was the amount of power that Jesus had exerting from him. It's this expectation of, if I just go see this guy, I'm going to be healed. There's a hope in that. But it's not exactly the hope that Jesus wants you to get from him. And we see that Jesus can't escape these crowds. You're reading this passage and understanding a little more about what their motives were. And, well, honestly, the wordage in there isn't exactly good for the situation that we find ourselves in right now. You're seeing a lot of people sick, diseased, got open sores, lepers, all congregating in one place. And you gotta ask yourself, where are all the masks, All right, that was a really bad coronavirus joke. But that's okay. Hopefully this makes up for it. So you're basically taking all the sick, all the lepers, all the disease, you're putting them in one spot because their ideology of the time was, as long as I'm just an integral part of society, as long as I can have some status that's above beggar, I can change my life around. Societally, if you had something wrong with you, a disability, if you were looked at as a beggar, you had no place. You had no job. You had no source of income. You could not be fixed. Your best bet was to sit on the steps of a government building or a temple and hope that people would just give you some drachmae. Just give you a few bucks here and there. And Jesus did come to heal. But he didn't come to fix a laceration, stitch you up. He didn't come to heal your broken bones. It's easy to see in hindsight, 2020, reading the gospel, is that there was so much more. And I feel like, especially today, our own wants and needs will oftentimes get in the way of what Jesus really wants for us. But when we come with an attitude of fix this, fix this, fix this, I can easily compare myself to this crowd who doesn't understand why Jesus is here, who doesn't really even care why Jesus is here. They're just looking at him as this great leader. Jesus is constantly doing stuff for people. And I think he realizes that these people have the wrong idea of who I am. Except, not everybody. There's this passage that I want us to listen to again, want us to understand, and I think this might be the most important part of this passage here. There are people in the crowd that do understand who Jesus is. Whenever the impure spirits, this is verse 11, whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." Now, this is important to me to understand because these spirits, these impure spirits, do understand who Jesus is. They do understand his power. And when they see Jesus and they get in front of Jesus, there is only one thing that they can do. This imagery of these impure spirits dropping to a knee in a position of defeat. But rather, I think a better term for it would be a position of submittance to Jesus, because they understand who exactly they're dealing with. So noticing in these passages the incompetence of the crowd, the discernment of the impure spirits, what we see here is that Jesus picking the 12 in this next passage kind of sounds pretty obvious. Picking people that he can just really pour into for his ministry of 3 years, really get them to know and understand and send them out to do his work. It is going to take 3 years of constant, every day, every night, working with them to be able to understand the pure power of Jesus. And this is what it says in Mark chapter 3, verse 13 through 19. Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to him those he wanted, and they came out to him. He appointed 12, that they might be with him and that they might send them out to preach, and to have authority to drive out demons. These are the 12 he appointed: Simon, named Peter, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, which they got some really cool nicknames here. Boanerges means sons of thunder. That's what Jesus called them. Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. So, I think in the grand scheme of the gospel, if I could be one of those 12, I mean, who wouldn't want to be? It is clear now that I've been studying this book for quite a long time. 4 years in college, tried to get as good a grades as I possibly could, degree in biblical studies and ministry, and I know for a fact that I have not even scratched the surface of the depths of the Bible, let alone the person of Jesus. To be in that group of 12 would be to sustain some sort of knowledge and even power that none of us could even imagine. Being in the inner circle of Jesus Christ, watching how he made his bed in the morning or made breakfast or just talked to strangers on the street, how he interacted with those around him, how he treated people of a lower status than him, how he treated people of a higher status than him, how he treated his family, the things that he taught about, all these things to just soak in all the time. Man, only these disciples would get this opportunity to see Jesus in the flesh 24 hours a day. So he chooses these disciples, and then he heads up to this mountainside. Oh, and that's where this passage meets the next. That's where it picks up here in verse 20. Then Jesus entered a house, and again a crowd gathered, so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. And when his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, he is out of his mind. And the teachers of the law who came down from Jerusalem said, he is possessed by Beelzebul, by prince of demons. He is driving out these demons. So Jesus called them over to him and began to speak to them in parables. How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, the house cannot stand. If Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand. His end has come. In fact, no one can enter a strong man's house without first tying him up. Then he can plunder the strong man's house. And truly, I tell you, people can be forgiven all their sins and every slander they utter. But whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven. They are guilty of eternal sin. He is saying this because they are saying he has an impure spirit. And then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. Standing outside, they sent someone into him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, your mother and brothers are outside looking for you. Who are my mother and brothers? He asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, here are my mother and brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. Now, one thing I do want to say about the book of Mark, it is written in an extremely fast-paced motion of it. It's quick moving. He constantly uses words like immediately. The pace is just constantly flying. It's off the handle. So before Jesus gets onto this scene, and I think going back through the history of the Roman government, even before Jesus was born, is important to understand a little bit as well, because it seems like Jesus is getting a lot of pushback from a lot of people that don't understand him at all. And I think when we understand where that pushback comes from, we can get a clear idea of why Jesus was so opposed in the early days of his ministry. So before Jesus comes onto the scene, claiming himself as the Messiah, there are actually 4 really noticeable, well, I wouldn't say really, but noticeable Messiah figures, or people that had claimed to be the Messiah. And what these Messiahs would do is they would get a crowd, they would speak pretty well. I mean, you have to be a pretty good linguist if you want to get followers, and you have to have some sort of a plan. There are 4 people that claim to be the Messiah. They would get a crowd, they would rile them up, and then they would attack Rome. A lot of their ideologies were to make Rome fall. A lot of these people were oppressed, hungry for power, and it's interesting because of the way the Roman government would deal with threats, swiftly and without mercy. And this is important to understand because when a certain person would come out and claim to be the Messiah, the Roman government would oftentimes go to the religious leaders and say, this guy claims to be of you. You better handle this, or we will come down there and handle it ourselves. And I'm sure a few times it was handled internally. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the lawmakers, the religious leaders, they did something about it. They tried to quiet them. They tried to, keep the peace amongst, do the things necessary to keep themselves safe, keep their family safe, because the Roman government, they were tough. But other times it boiled over into the streets, and there was violence, and there were people who died during these revolts, Roman soldiers and the people who were rioting under the leadership of these messiahs that were obviously false. So now we get this guy who actually has power. He's healing people. People are following him. He's teaching them things. He's breaking ceremonial, ritualistic laws. And rumors start to fly everywhere. And I don't think it's coincidence that these rumors of crowds and healing and teaching that is different from the normal law, it's getting around, and the Roman government probably is putting some pressure on the religious leaders. And if they hadn't, well, that was probably something that would be expected from them. And it's so interesting. The lawmakers, they come down where Jesus is at, the crowd around, and they accuse him of being an impure spirit. Now, it seems like an interesting political tactic to me to be like, listen, we don't know this guy. This must be the work of an impure spirit. He's not one of us. And once you get those rumors floating around, well, word of mouth was everything. There wasn't Twitter back then. Your word back then out of your mouth was to be the truth, to be believed by other people. These rumors were the rise and fall of empires in people's minds. To say that Jesus was an impure spirit would spread so fast that, okay, maybe the Roman government will deal with Jesus themselves. But that's when Jesus' family gets involved. Because of that type of societal pressure and all this trouble that Jesus is stirring up, this notoriety that he's getting, Jesus' mother and brothers, they're probably kind of irritated. They show up wherever Jesus is, and they're basically like, hey, I want to see him, because we can't have all this pressure, all these rumors flying around. It's causing a lot of stress. And I'm sure some of Jesus' brothers were like, who does this guy think he is? Like, this kid used to wet the bed back in the day. Nah, probably not. But there's probably some jealousy, some irritation, and Jesus just seems unfazed by it. In fact, he comes at them with this. He looked at those seated around him in the circle and said, here are my mother and brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. This whole passage culminating into this one verse. He deals with the religious leaders by this parable that he tells about the strong man. Refutes their accusations by saying, basically, that's an unfounded allegation. How ridiculous does that sound? Why would Satan be against himself in this manner? He claims to be exactly who he says he is, the Messiah. But also, that last verse, what it means for the crowd around him and the people that he's seated with. A lot of people, I think, instinctually will go, Jesus, that's your mother, brother, and sister outside, and you're going to insult them by saying, my mother, brothers, they're all right here. They're all around me. I mean, if I said that, I know my mom would get insulted, and she probably has a pretty good argument for being insulted, but what I think we have to understand is Jesus is not insulting his family, but he's elevating the people around him, elevating them into his family. What Jesus is saying is, the crowd that comes to me with their fix it, fix it, fix it attitudes, I'm not here to just fix it so they can leave. I'm asking them to enter in to this family. Jesus is offering them more. We are adopted into his family today. So I feel like this is a ton of stuff to learn in these passages. These passages are kind of all over the place. And in fact, I bet you could spend a sermon series on each of these passages alone, let alone doing 3 of them into this one sermon. But here's what we've learned. We can probably boil down these passages into this category of trying to figure out who the heck is Jesus. From the crowd, we see the healer of the ill, somebody who can bring hope, but this hope that the crowd isn't yet grasping. We see them show up in droves. We see them come with their issues and diseases and curiosity of wondering who this Jesus is. We see them broke and defeated. And we see healing. But more importantly, hope. And for the people that stick around, to hear the things that he's teaching, to see how they make sense, and to see where Jesus is going with this leadership, people are standing around shaking their heads like, I like this guy. So, this fix-it attitude that a lot of the crowd has, it's not up to where Jesus wants it to be. And I totally believe in a thing called buyer's remorse. Let me tell you how. If you go to Jesus and you touch his robes and you have broken legs and your broken legs are fixed and you can go out and be a part of society, well, where does that really get you in the grand scheme of things? You don't find a satisfied ending to your story. There's nothing fulfilling about showing up to Jesus with your problems, getting them healed, and then that's it. That's a recipe for a stale heart. And this buyer's remorse is, I don't know how many times I've prayed, God, will you please lift the lockdowns? Will you please help me with finances? Will you please do this? God, will you fix it? Will you fix it? Will you fix it? And I think the conclusion is this. A fix-you attitude will leave you more broken than before. A fix-this attitude will leave you broken, worse than before. I've had prayers that I've prayed that God has answered, I think just to show me that it's not where my heart should have been. Other times I've prayed where God has just flat out said no. And hindsight will tell me that, Lord, thank you for saying no to this. If I could flash forward a bit for a few months into lockdown, I've had 53 events canceled, 75% of our salary. We're panicked. We're applying for unemployment. We're applying for pandemic assistance. We're doing all that stuff. And I'm praying, God, please just get us through this. Please provide for us. Please fix it. Fix it. Fix it. God, please fix it. And we come to this moment in our household where I'm realizing that we are nothing different than the crowd running to Jesus saying, fix it, fix it, fix it. So I can go back and not really pay attention and just paint in my basement again. Because when we show up to Jesus with the fix this attitude, we miss him. When we show up to Jesus with the fix this attitude, we miss him. I'm afraid that during this time, I missed him. We had months locked away in our house with nothing to do other than paint and pray. And I surely lacked on where my heart has been through this whole lockdown. But hindsight is 20/20. If you come to Jesus with the fix it attitude, you will miss him. So many times when I ask Jesus to change my situation throughout the time that I've been a Christian, more often than not, Jesus will not fix the situation, but will instead fix my perspective on the issues. He will realign the direction of my heart and position it in a way that glorifies him. We come to him with a fix-it attitude, we will miss him. So I'm going to pray, and then enjoy the rest of your whatever day you are watching this on. Lord, we thank you so much that we can come to you and say, God, fix it. But Lord, we know that that is not where you want us to stay. You want us to move beyond fix it and say, Lord, your will be done. Lord, help us change our fix this attitude and change it to an attitude that shifts us into your kingdom perspective, that we may be better suited for the kingdom of God. Lord, we love you. It's in your son's name I pray. Amen.
Well, thank you, Cody, for that message. And thank you for the reminder about who Jesus is. And something we do each week as a church to be reminded together about who Jesus is we take communion. It's a way for us to worship God in this time. It's a way for us to be reminded of why Jesus came to come rescue us, to restore us, how he came not to fix our problems, but to redeem us to something so much more, to bring us into the family of God. Now, if you don't have your communion supplies with you, I'm going to invite you to pause this video right now to grab the cracker, the juice, whatever you have that represents the body and the blood of Jesus, and so we can take time to worship Jesus through communion together. And I'm going to give you a moment now to reflect on Cody's message, to reflect on where your faith is at and where Jesus is at, and when we come back from that time of pause and reflection, we'll take communion together. And so together as a church, we take the communion, we take the bread that represents Jesus' body. And together as one church, we drink the juice that represents his blood. And even though we're far apart, because we're not meeting in person yet, we worship Jesus together because of who he is and what he's all about through communion.
Your love is devoted like a ring of solid gold. like a vow that is tested, like a covenant of old. Your love is enduring through the winter rain. You're beyond the horizon, with mercy for today. Faithful you have been, faithful you will be. You pledge yourself to me, and it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. You father the orphan, your kindness makes us whole. You shoulder our weakness, and your strength becomes our own. You're making me like you, clothing me in white, bringing beauty from ashes. For you will have your bride, free of all her guilt, rid of all her shame, known by her true name. And it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips.
So our service is just about over, but I wanted to remind you, if you're new or like to get connected with us, fill out the online Connect card. There's a link in the comments. Also, if you'd like to give, that's done on our website, onechurchpgh.com/giving. Well, that's it. We hope you enjoyed the service. Thanks for gathering online with us, and we hope you enjoy your week.